34th gene key, the beauty of the beast. Programming partner, 20th gene key. Codon ring, the ring of destiny, 3443. Physiology, sacral plexus. Amino acid, asparagine. The 34th shadow, force, the bane of trying. The 34th shadow concerns the notion of individual human power. It represents an ancient part of our genetic matrix that is primarily based on individual survival, the survival of the fittest. This primal power source has its roots deep within our genetic past and began when the very first plants appeared on Earth. It was also strongly apparent during the reptilian phase of evolution on our planet. The reign of the dinosaurs during the Mesozoic era is an archetype of the power lying within the 34th gene key. In human evolution, it was this power determined to survive that literally forced the spines of our early hominid ancestors into progressively more upright stances. This is the force that made us different from all other mammals, because the moment we were upright, our brains began to develop differently. Despite our burgeoning intelligence, the 34th shadow still lies within us as the urge to use force to make things happen in life, and it can be highly destructive when influenced by low-frequency vibration. The 34th shadow carries a primal quality about it. It is not even animal, but is far more ancient. It is simply a pure evolutionary force whose prime directive is survival, and its only prerogative is to maintain life within a particular organism. You would not even call it selfishness, since that implies an awareness that others exist. This shadow creates a kind of intense self-absorption that, when applied to a modern human, leads to brute power without self-awareness. This 34th shadow, therefore, gives rise to a basic human law. At low frequencies, all human beings are destructive to the collective. The nature of modern society means that DNA, when behaving according to these archaic rules, inevitably destroys itself. You can perhaps see how the ancient intelligence in this 34th shadow was once absolutely necessary in order for humans to survive and evolve beyond other forms of life, especially other mammals. Through trial and error, the force within this gene key taught our bodies how to outwit other species. Yet in today's modern world, this ferocious competitive power is actually the greatest threat to our collective survival, and not just to our own survival, but to that of the entire planet. The programming partner of the 34th shadow is the 20th shadow of superficiality, whose repressive aspect is absence, which denotes an absolute lack of what we call humaneness. When the 34th shadow acts, it actually has no sense of what it is doing. It just acts without thinking or caring. Awareness may well creep in after the activity has finished, but during the activity, there is only pure mechanized absorption. In terms of modern human beings and their behavior, the 34th shadow can be best understood through the notion of trying. Trying implies forcing something to go a certain way when it won't go there easily on its own. Each time someone is caught in a space of trying to make something happen against the flow, they are under the influence of this shadow frequency. Such people seem unable to stop moving in the direction in which they have set out, and any attempt at help or guidance from the outside falls on deaf ears. As an aspect of the codon ring of destiny, the 34th shadow is linked chemically with the 43rd shadow of deafness. Under the influence of this shadow, you become totally lost to the force that is moving through you, even though it may be harmful to you or others. When operating at a low frequency, this 34th archetype is unavailable to outside influence. Consequently, you can see how, at its extremes, this energy can give rise to the most horrendous subhuman acts. If you have this 34th gene key as a major aspect of your hologenetic profile, you will tend to be confronted by its shadow aspect through the responses of others. This shadow tends to infuriate other people, since they cannot understand how you could be so blind to outside influence. It often seems to others as though you are behaving in an inhumane or foolish manner. This frequently results in some kind of challenge or complaint from the other person, which may take you by surprise. If you cannot maintain your frequency at a certain level, this kind of interference from others can create unwanted volatile situations in your life. If you are trying or forcing something, you will continually meet resistance from others. The 34th gene key is unaware of itself, even at the highest levels, so it is not a matter of changing yourself. It's simply about doing the right activity at the right time. In a child, the 34th gene key can be seen in its purest aspect, where it manifests as an endless stream of activity without any awareness of boundaries or of anyone outside them. Obviously, children need to learn the importance of boundaries, but it is the 34th shadow that is often unconsciously imprinted in your character as a child. Children with the 34th gene key in their hologenetic profile need a great deal of space and freedom, as well as proper boundaries, although they will tend to find their own boundaries as they go along. Such children cannot be compared with normal children and need to be allowed to develop naturally. They have within them the ability to learn to distinguish between force and strength, and they will discover this in their own way, without excessive help or conditioning from outside. As we shall see at the higher frequencies, there are enormous benefits and gifts hiding in this gene key. No matter who you are or what your hologenetic profile says, every human being has the capacity to tap into this aspect of our DNA and discover an inexhaustible reserve of inner strength. We can see from where this gene key relates physiologically that strength is to be found deep within the sacral plexus. It emerges from the area below and around your navel. This area of the body has long been known as a center of great power in human beings, and its real power lies in the fact that there is no obvious awareness located there. However, between the sacral and solar plexus, there is a huge and complex neural network. Despite our modern emphasis on the primacy of the brain as our main center of intelligence, the body's real nexus of intelligence is in fact centered in the belly. The 34th shadow bypasses this belly-centered intelligence and tends to lead you into unconscious mental loops within the brain. Force is always rooted in the mind, whereas power comes from the belly. Power is natural, grounded, and universally connected to all life, flowing as it does from the great umbilical center within your being. The awareness within the belly is beyond self-awareness because it is beyond the self. As such, it can be called pure awareness. Force happens when you forget to trust in this true center of pure awareness. Repressive nature, self-effacing. In those with a repressive nature, the 34th shadow essentially hides from its own power. It is afraid of itself. These are people who put themselves down and accept other people as their authorities. The self-effacing nature is about letting others walk all over you. Such people really become slaves to other people's principles or to society in general. All the magnificent individual power within this archetype is held back, often because of a difficult childhood. Thus, all the energy within these people becomes backed up, leading to tiredness and lack of energy, rather than to the natural expression of the 34th gift, which is tireless energy and strength. Ultimately, these are people who will have to free themselves from the situations in which they find themselves. As soon as they do this, they will find that their true strength returns. Reactive nature. Bullish. The reactive, angry side of this shadow manifests as a bullish or bossy nature. These are people who use force to bully others around. Their main problem is communication and inappropriate behavior. Because they are generally unaware that they are being so bullish, they become furious when challenged. Such people will continue to be bullheaded even after they are warned or have been challenged, and this usually ends badly for them. Even though they are often perceived as life's bullies, they are deeply misunderstood. They have been conditioned to behave in this way and are unaware of what they are really doing. What they need is to find a healthy activity into which they can channel their anger rather than constantly aggravating others. The 34th gift, strength. The Olympians. When the 34th shadow gives way to the 34th gift, a truly beautiful archetype emerges, human strength. What is fascinating about the connection between the shadow and the gift is the incredibly fine line between these two activations of the same essential energy code. The difference between the shadow of force and the gift of strength is both minuscule and enormous. The 34th gift employs the same terrific primal vitality, but unlike the shadow, it does so through appropriate activities and correct timing. The result is a creative manifestation of aligned life force that always catches the attention and praise of others. Individual strength is something absolutely natural to all human beings. Obviously, we are not talking about physical strength here, although people with this gift often can be physically strong. We are talking about the ability to act in harmony with natural forces, the real definition of strength. When applied to physical activity, which is what this 34th gift is all about, strength has no element of trying or forcefulness within it. It simply flows out of you, and you become effortlessly at one with the activity. Effortlessness, in this context, does not mean that there is no exertion. There may be great exertion, but there is no resistance. This fluid efficiency is one of the main hallmarks of the 34th gift. Another key aspect of the 34th gift is display. We already know that this gene key has ancient connections with the early cycles of life on the planet, and its oldest connection is with the plant kingdom. Plants depend upon insects, birds, and bees to generate and proliferate. In order to attract these other agencies, flowers bloom into all manner of beautiful shapes, colors, and aromas. In humans, the 34th gift shares this primal need for display, although not through any kind of ego. We need to remember that the 34th gift has no awareness of itself at any level. Obviously, the tendency to draw attention draws negative attention at the shadow frequency, but at higher frequencies, it draws positive attention. It is out of the 34th gift that all kinds of examples of human strength are born. The 34th gift is the gift of heroes and heroines. It is one of the greatest and oldest of human archetypes. True heroism occurs without awareness and is a wholly individual act. This is why every human being alive feels deep resonance to the heroes of myth or the heroes of contemporary culture. Heroism denotes strength. Ironically, though, true strength is quite unaware of itself. Many people who have committed incredible acts of bravery have afterwards described the experience as devoid of any intention on their part. This kind of heroism is entirely accidental, unlike the highest frequency of the 21st siddhi, which is valor, an entirely different archetype. Often heroes feel uncomfortable about being praised because it seems to them that the whole thing was out of their hands. However, even if it is accidental, the heroic act is never interpreted as such by others. It is usually set upon a pedestal and glorified. Being such a physical archetype, the 34th gift has a deep connection to activities involving physical movement, such as sport or dance. But this gift is not so much about team sports, rather it presents as individual flair. These are people whose very movements have a hypnotic quality, evoking admiration from others. They are our sports heroes and Olympians who seem to convey and radiate an individual power and poise beyond the norm. Mastery of human movement actually emerges only when awareness has withdrawn, leaving simply an intense self-assurance, the programming partner of the 20th gift. The 34th gift can be demonstrated in myriad fields of human endeavor. That is, in any area in which an individual rises above the common man. These people become our icons and gurus in business, sport, war, and sometimes government. There is a kind of primal power at work within such people, and it is impossible for others to miss it. In a world where the lower frequencies dominate, true inner strength never goes unnoticed. Along with the 43rd gene key, the 34th gene key forms the Ring of Destiny, an unusual genetic configuration that has a huge effect on your external life or destiny. When people speak of destiny, they often refer to a force that lies outside the reach of humanity. Yet the secret to destiny has to do with frequency. It is through this codon that the two great forces of evolution and involution come together. There is a great mystery here. Do you raise the frequency of your own DNA and change your destiny? That is the view of evolution. Or does a higher force outside you make it possible for you to raise the frequency of your DNA? That is the view of involution. The paradox can only be solved through another paradox. Both are true and both are interdependent. Heroes and heroines are made both on earth and in heaven. The 34th Siddhi, Majesty, where epiphany meets majesty. As mentioned, the 34th gene key has an unusual attribute that remains at all its levels of frequency, that of being unaware. Force is unaware of itself and leads to destruction. Strength is unaware of itself and leads to admiration. Here, at its peak, the Siddhi of Majesty blossoms. This is the majesty of the human form in motion, and the form itself is pure awareness, which is why it cannot be awareness of something. It quite simply reveals the true beauty of consciousness in form. Majesty is not really a state of being. It is the truth of all nature in motion. At the Siddhic level of being, everything alive displays majesty. Even the struggles of the low frequencies are revealed as majestic in their own distorted ways. But this 34th Siddhi, in actuality, concerns humanity more than any other aspect in human DNA. It is the Siddhi of the naked ape, of Adam and Eve, of the divine energy that constantly moves through the human form. It is through the 34th Siddhi that we get the idea of man as a god. This notion has been immortalized in our myths, in which the gods appear on earth and take on physical shapes, or through man's attempts to convey divine authority on certain chosen people throughout history. The great paradox is that if gods were to assume the shape of humans, they would never know they were gods. This is the true meaning of this 34th siddhi. The divine essence of creation can only move freely through the body when the identity has ceased to exist. Such people move in a way that is bewitching to the eye. Out of this siddhi have arisen the physical practices that aim at higher consciousness. For example, the mudras and asanas of yoga, or the movements of Tai Chi, all of which are spontaneous expressions of divinity moving through the form of someone in whom the 34th siddhi once dawned. These sacred movements, gestures, and dances contain the codes of higher consciousness. However, such practices can be great tricks that keep you thinking that a path to higher consciousness exists. There is no such path. Higher consciousness is simply a sudden leap. The sacred movements can indeed gain humans access to higher states of consciousness, but they do not lead to the leap. The problem of the sacred movements is that they were originally spontaneous expressions of higher consciousness. When they are copied, they are no longer spontaneous, even though they may lead to glimpses of higher consciousness. None of this is to say that sacred movements and practices are worthless. They are a natural stage for many people on the path towards transcendence. One just has to realize their origins. Out of the 34th siddhi also comes the highest level of the martial arts, with their notions that true strength lies in emptiness. The highest art of Qi Kung, for example, is known as empty force, in which the practitioner has dissolved all semblance of identity and has become a conduit for the intelligence of life itself. This is also where we get the concept of no mind in the highest art forms of Zen Buddhism. If this siddhi dawns in a person, they do not communicate through words or language, but through their actions and movements. Many of these people were the originators of the sacred arts, such as calligraphy, music, dance, and art. A work of art done by someone with the 34th siddhi is always regarded as a work of unparalleled genius and originality. Nevertheless, for the siddhic artist, the art itself is in the doing, whereas the results are meaningless. This truth is beautifully symbolized by Tibetan sand art, where incredibly intricate mandalas are created over months and when finished are left in the open wind to be blown away in a matter of hours. The 34th siddhi contains another great secret concerning awakening. Through its genetic connection to its programming partner, the 20th siddhi of presence, the 34th siddhi requires that an individual transcend their genetic fear of survival by bringing their presence fully into every moment. The challenge for the individual is to let go of his or her individuality, which feels like their very essence. Indeed, your survival appears threatened by dissolution into the ocean of presence. In truth, this is the whole point. You cannot survive the leap into the siddhic level. The final surrender required of you before dying into the siddhic frequency is the surrender of your physical body and the vibration of its movement. Once you have entered the siddhic frequency, all fear is purged from your system, and the pure awareness of your body's physical intelligence is revealed. It is as though the entire universe were moving through your body. The 34th siddhi demonstrates one of the key attributes of life itself, that of efficiency. In the Ring of Destiny, the epiphany of the higher planes encounters and infuses the majesty of the body on the lower planes. The result is pure fusion as spirit enters matter and imbues it with divinity. When life is not interfered with in any way, it becomes highly fluid and efficient. The more you try to force life to flow where you would like it to go, as opposed to where it wants to go, the less efficient you become and the more energy you use. The most commonly used analogy to this aspect of the 34th siddhi is the comparison of the life force to water. To echo the words of the great sage Lao Tzu, the very softest thing of all can ride like a galloping horse through the hardest of things, like water penetrating rock, and so the invisible enters in. That is why I know it is wise to act by doing nothing, and how very few understand this.